Right, diving in today, we're tackling mindfulness and meditation, specifically through this book, 10% Happier. And it's by Dan Harris, who is not like your typical meditation guru.
No, not at all.
This guy's a news anchor.
Yeah, he's a news anchor.
And he had a panic attack on live TV.
That's right.
So talk about a high pressure gig, you know? And that's actually what makes this whole thing so interesting, right? Because he kind of comes at it from this like very relatable place of being a super stressed out person who probably thought meditation was kind of woo woo, you know?
Absolutely. And I think his background and his career really make it relatable to a lot of people who might be skeptical about mindfulness or meditation. Because it's like, if this guy who's like, in the trenches of the news world can find some value in it, then maybe there's something there for me too.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I have to admit, I was pretty skeptical too at first because, you hear meditation and you just picture like someone sitting cross-legged on a mountaintop, chanting Om. But like, one of the things that I really liked about this book is the premise that, you don't have to go all in and become some kind of Zen master. Even a 10% improvement in your well-being, that's like a huge win.
Yeah, and that's really what Harris emphasizes. It's like, you don't need a complete transformation. Even these small shifts, like a 10% increase in your happiness or your ability to manage stress, it can have these ripple effects. It impacts your work, your relationships. It just kind of changes your whole outlook. So he really debunks that myth that you have to like become a totally different person to benefit from meditation.
Okay. And he also brings in the science, right? He doesn't just like tell stories and say, oh, I felt better. Mm-hmm. He actually like looks at the research.
Yeah, totally. He delves into a lot of the research that's been done on mindfulness and its effects on, stress reduction, focus, even things like, compassion and empathy. And for example, he mentions a study where mindfulness practices actually reduced participants' stress hormone levels by 15%. So it's not just subjective, there's actual physiological changes happening.
Okay, that's fascinating. All right, so we've established that mindfulness, like, it can have real impacts. It's not just woo-woo, but like, I'm picturing our listeners right now. They're probably thinking, okay, great, but how do I do this? Like, where do I start?
Right. That's the big question. And that's where, Harris kind of breaks it down into these three key takeaways that he really emphasizes throughout the book. And they're all very practical and actionable steps that anyone can take, regardless of their background or their lifestyle.
Okay. All right. Give us the goods. What are these three magic ingredients?
So the first one is daily meditation. Even if it's just for a few minutes, like, starting small is key. There are tons of apps and resources out there that can guide you through it. You don't have to be, a master to just sit and focus on your breath for a few minutes each day.
Got it. Daily meditation. Okay, what else?
The second one is finding these mindful moments throughout your day. And this is about bringing your full attention to whatever you're doing in that moment, really experiencing it with all of your senses rather than just kind of going through the motions on autopilot.
Okay, so it's like if you're washing the dishes, instead of just like mindlessly scrubbing, you're actually feeling the warm water, the soap, like noticing the scent of the dish soap, really being present in that moment.
Exactly. It's about bringing that awareness to those everyday tasks that we often just do without really thinking about them.
Okay, so we've got daily meditation, mindful moments throughout the day. What's the third key?
The third key is embracing imperfection. So this is huge because, life isn't about being perfectly mindful all the time. You're going to get distracted. You're going to have moments of stress and frustration. And that's okay. The key is to notice when your mind has wandered and to gently guide your attention back to the present moment without judging yourself.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we have these three ideas: daily meditation, mindful moments, and embracing imperfection. But like, I think it would be helpful to get a little bit more specific, right? Like, what do these things actually look like in practice? Can you give us some examples?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say you're, stuck in traffic and you can feel yourself getting all tense and frustrated.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling.
Right. Instead of like fuming over something you can't control, you could use that as an opportunity to practice mindfulness. So you could shift your focus to your breath, notice the sensation of each inhale and exhale, and just kind of be present in that moment.
Okay. That sounds a lot more productive than like honking my horn at the car in front of me.
Exactly. It's about like choosing how you want to respond to a situation instead of just letting your emotions kind of run the show.
I'm starting to see how this could be applied to all sorts of like everyday challenges.
Absolutely. From dealing with difficult coworkers to navigating, family gatherings. These are all situations where mindfulness can help you approach things with a little bit more, grace and composure.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about those bigger challenges, those things that really kind of knock you off balance? Like, how does mindfulness help with that?
Yeah. Well, Harris actually shares a really powerful anecdote in the book about how mindfulness helped him cope with a major career setback. He was publicly criticized for something and felt really overwhelmed with shame and self-doubt. That feeling of just wanting to hide under a rock?
Oh, I can definitely relate to that.
Right. But instead of spiraling into all that negativity, he used mindfulness to kind of acknowledge those feelings without letting them completely consume him.
Okay, so it's not about ignoring or suppressing difficult emotions.
Yeah.
It's more about facing them head on with a sense of awareness and acceptance.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that you are not your thoughts or emotions. You have the power to observe them without getting completely swept away by them.
That's really interesting. One of the things that I've always been curious about with this whole mindfulness thing is how does it actually impact your performance? Because it seems kind of counterintuitive, right? If you're so focused on the present moment, does that make you less ambitious or less driven about, the future?
It's a common misconception. But what Harris discovered, and what a lot of research actually supports, is that mindfulness can actually enhance your performance in a lot of ways.
Okay, how so?
Well, by cultivating focus and emotional regulation, you're actually able to work more effectively, think more clearly under pressure, and even handle criticism with greater resilience.
So it's not about becoming some sort of detached observer. It's about harnessing the power of mindfulness to become more engaged and more effective in the world.
Exactly. Harris talks about how mindfulness actually made him a better journalist. He could conduct interviews with greater presence, think more critically, and write more insightful pieces.
So it sounds like mindfulness is not just about feeling better, it's about becoming a more well-rounded, capable person.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. It's about cultivating this deeper sense of well-being that permeates every aspect of your life.
That's really cool. I'm curious, as you were reading 10% Happier, was there anything that particularly resonated with you, anything that really stood out?
What struck me the most was just Harris's honesty about his own struggles. He doesn't pretend to have all the answers. And he's very open about the fact that he still gets stressed, he still gets distracted, he's a work in progress just like all of us.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes his message so much more relatable and believable.
Yeah.
Right? It's not about achieving some unattainable state of perfect bliss.
Exactly. It's about, making these small, consistent efforts to cultivate a more mindful way of being.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling pretty inspired right now.
Me too.
I think our listeners might be feeling ready to embark on their own little mindfulness journeys after this. What do you think?
I hope so. I think, there's a lot to be gained from exploring these ideas and seeing how they can apply to your own life.
Absolutely. Any final words of wisdom for those who are just starting out? Any advice?
Just remember to start small, be kind to yourself, and just embrace the journey. It's not a race. It's about, finding what works for you and just being consistent with it.
That's great advice. Progress over perfection.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to, seek out resources and support. There are so many great books, podcasts, apps out there that can guide you along the way.
Yeah. And speaking of podcasts, if you're looking for a fantastic resource to delve deeper into the world of mindfulness and personal growth, I highly recommend checking out the Books Talk Wisdom podcast channel.
Oh yeah, they're great. They have a whole series dedicated to decoding the core messages of books like 10% Happier.
Exactly. It's a great way to continue exploring these concepts and actually apply them to your own life. And they always bring in experts and, really insightful guests to share their perspectives. I actually love listening to Books Talk Wisdom. It's kind of like having a personal book club with some really smart and engaging friends.
Yeah, they do a great job of breaking down complex ideas into these bite-sized pieces that are easy to understand and, apply.
Yeah, totally. So if you're ready to dive deeper into 10% Happier and other thought-provoking books, be sure to subscribe to Books Talk Wisdom. You won't regret it.
Definitely not.
Okay, and on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into 10% Happier.
It's been a pleasure exploring this book with you.
Yeah, me too. I hope you found it as insightful and inspiring as we did. And remember, even a 10% shift towards greater happiness can make a world of difference.
It really can.
So keep practicing, keep exploring, and keep seeking those mindful moments in your everyday life. You might be surprised at how much happier you can become.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this journey, and until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep diving deep into the world of knowledge. Like, it's almost like having a personal coach in your pocket, guiding you towards a more mindful and fulfilling life.
Totally. And they make it fun and engaging too. It's not like, super dry or anything.
Okay, cool. So what are you waiting for? Head over to your favorite podcast app, subscribe to Books Talk Wisdom today.
Yeah, you won't regret it.
All right. And on that note, I think we're going to wrap up this deep dive into 10% Happier.
It's been great. I really enjoyed exploring these ideas with you.
Yeah, me too. We hope you found it insightful, maybe even a little bit life-changing, who knows?
Yeah, and remember, mindfulness isn't about becoming a Zen master overnight.
No, it's about taking small steps, making gradual progress and embracing the journey.
And even a 10% improvement in your well-being can make a huge difference.
It really can. So keep practicing, keep exploring, and keep seeking those mindful moments in your everyday life. You might be surprised at how much happier and more fulfilled you can become.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time for another adventure in the world of knowledge. It's like they really make it accessible to everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so what are you waiting for? Go check out Books Talk Wisdom. You'll thank us later.
Definitely.
All right, well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into 10% Happier by Dan Harris.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting conversation.
I always enjoy chatting about this stuff with you. It's so easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of everyday life and kind of forget about, taking care of our mental well-being.
It's true. And I think this book is a great reminder that, even small changes can make a big difference.
Absolutely. So to our listeners out there, remember, even a 10% shift toward greater happiness, it can make a world of difference. It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks for joining us on this journey. And until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep diving deep.